Happy Hanukkah, a freiliche Hanukkah. The Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos, in the tractate of Shabbos, Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, page 21, which is the section in the Gemara that is dedicated to the festival of Hanukkah, Zog the Gemara. Tonu Rabbanon Mitzvahs Hanukkah Neir Ish Ubeisai. The rabbis taught that the mitzvah of Hanukkah is to kindle each night of Hanukkah one flame for every person and his household. In other words, each night of Hanukkah, every Jewish home lights one flame in honor of the holidays. The first night, one flame. The second night, one flame. The third night, one flame, etc. V'hamahadrin neir l'kol echad ve'echad. Those who wish to beautify the mitzvah, those who wish to enhance the mitzvah of lighting Hanukkah candles, increase a candle for each member of the household. So if there are 5 members in this household, each night of Hanukkah they kindle not 1 but 5 candles. V'hamahadrin min hamahadrin, those who wish to enhance the mitzvah in an extraordinary way, they want to do the mitzvah not just with extra beauty but with beauty within beauty. Mahadrin min hamahadrin, the most beautiful of the beautiful way of doing the mitzvah. Here there's an argument. Beis Shammai oimrim yoim rishon madlik shmoina mikan ve'elech poiches v'hoilech. Beis Hillel oimrim yoim rishon madlik achas mikan ve'elech moise v'hoilech. The school of Shammai holds the first night you light 8 candles, and each day you decrease the number. So the first night of Hanukkah you kindle 8, the second night of Hanukkah 7 candles, the third night 6, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, and then finally the last night of Hanukkah you kindle 1 flame. The school of Hillel disagrees. The school of Hillel says you increase the number. So the first night of Hanukkah you kindle 1 flame, the second night 2, 3, and then the last night of Hanukkah we kindle 8 flames. Omar Ula. Ula said, Pligi Batrei Amiroi b'Marav. 2 sages in the west, meaning in the land of Israel, because Ula was a Talmudic sage who lived in Babylonia, present-day Iraq, which is of course east from the Holy Land. So Ula says, 2 rabbis in the west, in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, which is west from Babylonia, argued. And the argument was, what is the rationale? What is the logic behind the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel? And the 2 rabbis are Rabbi Yossi bar Abin and Rabbi Yossi bar Zvida. Rabbi Yossi, the son of Abin, Rabbi Yossi, the son of Zvida. Chad Omar, Taimed de Beis Shammai, Keneged Yamim HaNichnosin, V'Taimed de Beis Hillel, Keneged Yamim HaYotzin. The first opinion is that the logic behind Beis Shammai, the logic behind the school of Shammai is that he counts Yamim HaNichnosim, the days that will come in, the days that will enter. Where the school of Hillel gazes, looks at, focuses on the Yamim HaYotzin, the days that left. In other words, Beis Shammai says the first night of Hanukkah, we're celebrating the first of 8 days, the first night of 8 nights. In this night we have the beginning of 8. Yamim HaNichnosin. We count the days that will be entering into Hanukkah. This is the first of 8. So how many candles do we light tonight? We light 8 candles encompassing all of the days. The second night of Hanukkah, you don't have any more 8 days. 1 day of Hanukkah is gone. Now we have 7. Now we have 7 days left. This is the second night of Hanukkah. It's the second of 8 days. We have 7 days about to come. So we light 7 candles. The third night we have 6 left. So we light 6. The 8th night we have only 1 day left. This is the last night of Hanukkah. So we light only 1. Beis Hillel, conversely, looks at Yamim HaYotzin, at the days of Hanukkah that have gone by already, that we have already experienced. Not that we will experience, but that which we have already experienced. The first night of Hanukkah, you have 1 night. You don't have 8 nights. You have 1 night of Hanukkah. So you light 1 candle. The second night, you have now accumulated 2 nights. You're now in the second day of Hanukkah, so you light 2. On the 8th night of Hanukkah, finally, we have 8 nights. 8 nights of Hanukkah we have already experienced. Yamim Hayotzin, these are the days that left. These are the days that have already been here, or that is here presently. Either the days have been here already, or it's here now, as Rashi says. So we light 8. This is the first rabbi, his explanation. What is the logic that distinguishes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel? Why Beis Shammai holds we go downwards and Beis Hillel holds we go upwards. The second opinion is Chadamar Taimet de Beis Shammai keneged Porei Hachag. The Taimet de Beis Hillel the Mailen Bakodesh ve'ein Meridin. The logic for Beis Shammai is he parallels the lights of the Chanukah candelabra to the bulls of the Chag, to the bulls of the holiday of Sukkot. The Torah says in Parshas Pinchas, in the portion of Pinchas in the book of Numbers, that each day of the festival of Sukkot, of the 8 days of Sukkot, the Jews were obligated to offer a certain amount of parim, a certain amount of bulls in the Beis HaMikdash, in the sanctuary, in the Mishkan, and then in the Holy Temple. The first day there were 13, the second day 12, the third day 11, the fourth day 10, and then 9 and 8 and 7. On the 8th day on Shmini Atzeres is 1 bull. So Beis Shammai says, just like on Sukkot we see that the Torah instructs us to go down, you begin with a certain amount of bulls, but you decrease each day. So Hanukkah is structured in the same way. We begin with 8, but we go down 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The opinion of Beis Hillel is Mailen Bakodesh ve'ein Meridin. When it comes to holiness, you must go up, you must increase, you must ascend, and certainly not go down, not descend. So therefore Beis Hillel says, don't go from 8 to 7. Go from 1 to 2 to 3 until you reach 8. And the Gemara concludes, Amar Rabbi bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi, the son of Chana, said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Shnei Skeinim hayu b'tzidon. Echad asa kebeis Shammai, v'yechad asa kebeis Hillel. Zen noisen tam l'dvarov, keneged Porei Hachag, v'zen noisen tam l'dvarov, the Mailen Bakodesh ve'ein Meridin. There were 2 elderly Jews in a city called Sidon. One followed Beis Shammai, the other followed Beis Hillel. One gave the reason for his opinion, paralleling the bulls that were offered on the holiday of Sukkot, and the other gave the logic for his behavior, because in holiness you must increase and not decrease. This is the Gemara Masechta Shabbos Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis concerning how many candles we light each night of Hanukkah. So in summation, we have 3 ways of performing, observing the mitzvah of kindling the Menorah on Hanukkah. The original mitzvah is Neir Ishu Beisa. Each Jewish household lights 1 flame, kindles 1 candle, 1 flame for each night of Hanukkah. Each night you kindle 1 wick and it lights up the home on Hanukkah. Mahadrin, those who want to enhance the mitzvah and do it in a more beautiful way, each member of the household kindles his or her own flame each night of Hanukkah. So 5 candles each night, or 10 candles each night, or 6 candles each night, no difference which night. Those who want to really beautify the mitzvah, Mahadrim and Mahadrin, here we have an argument. Beis Shammai says 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Beis Hillel says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. As we know, the halacha, the verdict is like Beis Hillel. Each night of Hanukkah we increase the number. We begin the first night of Hanukkah 1, and then we go up 2, 3, etc. Now here we have to understand a few things which beg for our clarification and our understanding. Number 1, what is really the argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel? So the Gemara cites 2 opinions. What is the argument? Both opinions, it apparently seems, need much more clarification and explanation. The first opinion says the argument is, Beis Shammai says we look at the days that will come. Beis Hillel says we look at the days that have come or are presently experienced. Granted, but what is the logic behind that argument? Why does Beis Shammai focus on the future of Hanukkah and Beis Hillel focuses on the past and on the present? The same question one must ask concerning the second explanation in their argument. Beis Shammai compares Hanukkah to the bulls that were offered on Sukkot. But what is the connection? This is a biblical commandment that relates to the festival of Sukkot, that each night they offered a certain amount, each day they offered a certain number of bulls, and they went down the next day. Why does Beis Shammai feel that Chanukah must mirror that mitzvah? The same is with Beis Hillel, who holds Mailin B'Kodesh Ve'ein Moridin. You go up in holiness and you don't go down in holiness. What is the logic? Why Beis Shammai compares Chanukah to the bulls of Sukkot, and Beis Hillel says, no, there's a different system. In holiness, you must go up and not go down. But Sukkot, we see that the Torah says that we do go down in the numbers. The first day of Sukkot, we offer one number of bulls, and each day we decrease that number. Now, in order to understand the answer to both of these questions, let us introduce a great argument that exists in this Gemara between the Rishonim, between Tosefot and the Rambam, which is, of course, a few hundred years after the Talmud was written. The Rambam Maimonides, who lived in the 12th century in Spain, and then in Morocco, and then in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, and ultimately in Egypt, where he passed away, he has one perspective in this Gemara. Tosefot, the Ashkenazic, German, French commentators on the Gemara from the house of Rashi, the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Rashi and their colleagues, who wrote the Tosefot, the commentary on the pages of the Talmud, they have a different perspective in this Gemara. Tosefot says on the words, V'amahadrin min amahadrin nira liri, the Beis Shammai u Beis Hillel loy kaimi ela neir ishu beisai. Shekain yesh yoiser hidur de ike hakeire kashamai sivaylach oy mechaser sho keneged yamamanich nosim moya yoitzim. Avalim oisen neir lekol echad afilu yosef mekan ve'elech leke hakeire sheyizberu shekach yesh bnei adam babayis. Tosefot quotes the Ri, who says that the perspective of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel relates to the first category in kindling the Hanukkah flames, which means we had three systems in how you light the Menorah. The first is each household one flame each night. The second is each member of the household kindles a flame. Now, when Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel argue whether you decrease each night or you increase each night, are they applying this to the opinion that each household kindles one flame? So Beis Shammai says the first night the household kindles 8, the second night 7, the third night 6. And Beis Hillel says no, the first night you kindle 1, the second night 2. Is it referring to the way of each household, to the perspective which believes that each household only lights one flame on Hanukkah? And here is the argument, do we go up or do we go down? Or is the argument of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel applying to the Mahadrin, to the second category? That each member of the household kindles a Hanukkah flame. That's Mahadrin. What is Mahadrin? Mina Mahadrin? That not only each member of the household kindles one flame, but either they kindle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In other words, does the Mahadrin Mina Mahadrin piece in the Gemara continue and enhance the Mahadrin, or does it apply only to the first category? It skips over the Mahadrin. Tosefot holds that the argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel applies only to the first category. Only if each household is lighting one flame do we now have the argument of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel don't believe that each member of the household should kindle a flame. Should kindle a flame. Why? Tosefot's logic is simple. Beis Shammai wants we should recognize how many days left Hanukkah. Beis Hillel wants that we should recognize how many days left Hanukkah. Beis Shammai says we must recognize how many days are still coming into Hanukkah. Beis Shammai says the first night we light 8 because we have 8 nights to go. Beis Hillel says the first night we light 1 because there is only one night in actuality. The second night we light 2. Therefore, it's logical that each of them would want that this distinction should be recognizable. It should be conspicuous. According to Beis Shammai, it should be obvious. Tonight is the first night of Hanukkah, hence there are 8 flames. According to Beis Hillel, it's the first night of Hanukkah, hence there is one flame. The second night of Hanukkah, Beis Shammai wants us to recognize that there are 7 nights left, 7 flames. Beis Hillel, 2 nights have been experienced, there are 2 flames. So we want there to be a conspicuous distinction. If each member of the household is going to be lighting the Hanukkah Menorah, there will not be any distinction. Why? Because let's say the 3rd night of Hanukkah, you have 3 members in the household. Each one is lighting 3 candles. So how many flames do you have burning? If each one is lighting 3, because it's the 3rd night of Hanukkah, so you have 9 flames. Last night you had 6 flames. Tonight you have 9 flames. Says the Riyan Tosefot, you don't recognize that it's the 3rd night of Hanukkah and that's why they're lighting 3 flames. You might say there are 9 members in the household. So each member of the household lit a Hanukkah flame, lit a Hanukkah candle. The same is true with Beis Hillel. It comes the 3rd night of Hanukkah. Each member of the household is lighting 6 flames. You don't recognize that they're lighting 6 flames because it's the 3rd night of Hanukkah, so you have 6 nights to go. You believe they're lighting 6 flames again because there are 6 members in the household. Each one is lighting 6 flames, so 6, 12, 18. There are 18 members in the household. So therefore Tosefot says that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel believe that the Mahadrin Min HaMahadrin must skip over the Mahadrin. They don't hold that each member of the household lights a candle. Only the entire household together lights the menorah. The first night 1, the second night 2, the third night 3, the third night 4, or according to Beis Shammai, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So each night it's recognizable. These are the amount of days that have left. These are the amount of days, according to Beis Shammai, that are still about to enter. The Rambam disagrees. Maimonides, the Rambam in Hilchos Megillah v'Chanukah, he understands the Gemara differently. He asks, how many candles do we light on Hanukkah? So the Rambam says the mitzvah is that each home should kindle 1 flame each night of Hanukkah, whether there are many people who live there or only one person lives there. If you want to be mahadir in the mitzvah, ha-mahadir is a mitzvah, if you want to beautify the mitzvah, each member of the household has a candle lit for them, men and women. Those who wish to do the mitzvah even with more beauty and with a higher quality, each member of the household increases each night 1 flame. And he gives an example. If there are 10 people living in this home, the first night they kindle 10 candles. The second night 20, the third night 30, the 8th night 80 candles are lit in the house. Because since this is a house which contains 10 people, each one of them increases each night according to Beis Hillel. The last night they're lighting 80 candles in this home. In other words, the Rambam holds that the opinion of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel Mahadrim and Mahadrin doesn't skip over the second category. It's a continuum to Mahadrin. The Mahadrin say each member of the household kindles 1 flame. The Mahadrin Min HaMahadrin says each member of the household adds flames, either going up like Beis Hillel or going down like Beis Shammai. The Rambam concludes that the minhag, the custom in all of our cities in Sfard and Spain is that each member of the household, that the entire household, Kol Anshe Abai is the entire household, kindles 1 lamp the first night, and each night of Hanukkah they increase 1 flame until the last night of Hanukkah they're kindling Shmoina Neiros, 8 candles. In other words, the Rambam believes that the minhag is like Beis Hillel, you increase each night 1 candle, but who increases it? Not every person, each household, which is essentially what Tosefot said. And the Rambam says this is the custom in Spain. It's not the mitzvah min hamufcher, it's not the most beautiful way of doing the mitzvah, but this is the minhag pashut b'chol areinu b'sfard. When you look in Shulchan Aruch, if you take out of Shulchan Aruch the Jewish code of law, the laws of Hanukkah, Eirachayim Simin Tofresh Ayin Aleph, the Beis Yosef, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi Yosef Karo, writes, like Tosefos, How do you light the Chanukah Menorah? Each night we increase one flame for the entire household. So the first night the household kindles one light, the second night 2 lamps, the third 3, the last night of Hanukkah they kindle the entire menorah, all 8 flames. The Rambam, the commentator on the Shulchan Aruch, written by Rabbi Moshe Isserlish, he says that the minik pashut, the regular custom practiced by all Jews, is like the Rambam says, that what is the best way of doing the mitzvah? Each member of the household increases each night a light, which means if there are 8 people or there are 10 people in the household, the first night they kindle 10, and each night they increase 1 candle, which means the 8th night they will be lighting 80 candles in this whole household. The Taz, the Turei Zahav, the great commentator on Shulchan Aruch, written by Reb David Segel, the Taz writes, "Ubekan yesh chidush b'minik." There is a novelty here in the custom of Hanukkah. Hasfardim noyagin ketoisves k'mesher kosev abis Yosef, v'ashkenazim kerambam v'zelei matzinu b'shar mekaymes. We have here a novelty in Jewish practice. The Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, was a Sfardi. He was from Sfardi, he was from Spain. The Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlish, he represented the Ashkenazic world. The main chief rabbi of Krakow of Poland was an Ashkenazi, and therefore the Sephardic communities usually follow the verdicts of the Beis Yosef in the Shulchan Aruch. The Ashkenazim follow the commentaries and the verdicts of the Ramah, Rabbi Moshe Isserlish, in his commentary to Shulchan Aruch. Here we see an interesting phenomenon. The Sephardim follow Tosefot. Tosefot belong to the school of Ashkenazim. The Ashkenaz is Germany. The Jews of France and Germany were called Ashkenazim. So Tosefot represents the world of the Ashkenazim. The Sephardim, like the Beis Yosef writes, follow Tosefot. As the Rambam writes, this was the custom in Spain. They follow Tosefot. That each household lights 1 candle and increases each night a candle. The 8th night they light 8 candles. The Ashkenazim, represented by the verdict of the Ramah and Shulchan Aruch, they follow the Rambam, who was a Sephardi. They follow the Rambam, Rabbeinu Moshe ben Maimon, who was a Sephardi, that each member of the household should light Hanukkah candles and increase their candle each night. And this, the Taz says, we don't find anywhere else. The Ashkenazim here follow the Sephardim, and the Sephardim follow the Ashkenazim. The Vilna Gaon, in his commentary on Shulchan Aruch, as well as the Pri Chodesh in his commentary on Shulchan Aruch, the Chidah in Birkei Yosef and another Svarim, explain that this is the deeper meaning in the argument between the 2 rabbis in the Talmud. What is the rationale in the argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel? Meaning, Tosefot learns that there's one rationale in the argument between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. The Rambam holds there's another rationale. Tosefot is of the opinion that what dictates the logic of Beis Shammai versus Beis Hillel is Yomim HaNichnosin and Yomim HaYotzim. The days that left or the days that will be coming in. Therefore, according to Tosefot, you want to make a clear, conspicuous recognition of this distinction. If each member of the household is going to kindle Hanukkah candles, you're not going to recognize how many days left or how many days will enter, as we explained before. And that's why Tosefos holds that according to Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, there's only 1 candle for the entire household. Now the question is it 8, 7, 6, 5, or is it 1, 2, 3, 4? But the household kindles together the Chanukah Menorah, not each member separately. And therefore you can make a distinction. The 3rd night of Hanukkah, there are 3 candles because 3 nights of Hanukkah. But if you're going to have each member of the household kindling, you don't know that it's because it's 3 nights of Hanukkah and we have 3 nights. It could be that's how many people you have in the household. It could be new children arrived for Hanukkah, the 3rd day of Hanukkah, so they're adding more candles. That's according to Tosefot. The Rambam, however, he embraces primarily the second opinion in Gemara, that the difference between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is the bulls of Sukkos, or Mailin B'Kodesh Vein Meridin, you go up in holiness and you don't go down. If that's the case, it's irrelevant to emphasize the amounts of days of Hanukkah which we're standing in or that have gone by already. The main emphasis is either to decrease or to increase. So according to the Rambam, I don't care if each member of the household lights on the third night of Hanukkah 3 candles. So you have, let's say, 9 candles burning. The main thing is, last night there were less, tonight there are more. Beis Hillel doesn't need us to emphasize and accentuate and conspicuously manifest how many days have left Hanukkah, how many days of Hanukkah we have experienced. The main thing in Beis Hillel is Mailen B'Kodesh, to go up, not to go down. The second night there were less candles. The third night you went up. That's sufficient. According to Beis Shammai, it's not so important to emphasize how many days of Hanukkah we still have to experience. The first night 8, the second night 7, the third night 6. So therefore we want to make that clear. And if you have every member of the household lighting the Menorah, it's going to be lost in the numbers. According to Beis Shammai, the main emphasis is to go down. As long as the first night you had a certain amount of candles. You had 8, but you have every member of the household. So you have 8, you have 16, you have 24. The second night you went down. Now you have only 21. That's fine. You don't see that it's the second night of Hanukkah and now you only have 7 to go. The main emphasis is it should be like the bulls of Sukkot. It should go down. You went down. It's sufficient. So we see here, the Pri Chadash says, that the argument in Gemara, what is the logic behind Beis Shammai and behind Beis Hillel? 2 different opinions, 2 different perspectives. And we have to understand, why would they argue in logic? It seems like there's no practical ramification to their argument. We see clearly there is a practical ramification, because the argument between Tosefot and the Rambam follows these 2 opinions. There are also some other ramifications. For example, let's say on the second night of Hanukkah, you only kindled 1 flame. For whatever reason. How many candles should you light on the third night of Hanukkah? According to the school of Hillel. If you say that the reason why we increase each night according to Beis Hillel is for the days that left already, so the third night you have to kindle 3 Hanukkah lights, because it's the third night of Hanukkah. But according to the second opinion, that the main logic of Beis Hillel is Mailen B'Kodesh, you go up in holiness. So even if you only kindle 2 Hanukkah candles, it's fine, because you went up. Last night you only did 1, tonight you're doing 2. Or another example. Let's say it's the third night of Hanukkah, but you only have enough oil for 2. You don't have enough oil for 3 wicks. You only have enough oil for 2 wicks. What should you do? According to the opinion that Beis Hillel's logic is Keneged Yamim HaYotzim, for the days that left already, since you anyway will not be able to light 3, so what's the point in lighting 2? It's the third night of Hanukkah, so you can already just light 1. But according to the opinion that the logic is Mailen B'Kodesh Ve'ein Moiridin, you should light 2. Because even though you're not going up, because last night you did 2 and tonight you're doing again 2, at least you're not going down. So don't do 1, at least do 2. So we see here 3 practical ramifications from the argument in the Gemara. What is the logic behind Beis Shammai's opinion, and what is the logic behind Beis Hillel's opinion? But now, let's take it a step deeper. Because we still need to understand what is the logic behind the logic. We explained the ramifications between the 2 arguments. But what is the understanding in each argument itself? Why does Beis Shammai believe in Yamim HaNechnosin, Beis Hillel in Yamim HaYotzin, Beis Shammai Parei HaChag, Beis Hillel Mailen B'Kodesh Ve'ein Moiridin? If we learn further in the Gemara, Shabbos Daf Chafalef Amud Beis, the Gemara says, Toner Rabbanan Mai Chanukah. What is Chanukah? As Rashi says, Al Eza Neis Kavua, What is the reason for the miracle of Hanukkah? The reason Rashi explains the question this way is because it seems strange that the Gemara should ask, "My Hanukkah, what is Hanukkah?" We don't know what Hanukkah is. When the Gemara was written, when the Talmud was written, Jews have been celebrating Hanukkah for hundreds of years. So certainly they knew what Hanukkah was. So therefore Rashi explains, "My Hanukkah" means, what's the reason for the miracle of Hanukkah? Why did they establish this festival of Hanukkah? So the Gemara tells us, Tana Rabban, the rabbis have taught. On the 8th day of Kislev begins 8 days of Hanukkah. When the Greeks went into the Heichel, Timu kol hashmanim shebeheichel. They contaminated all of the oils in the Heichel, in the chamber of the Beis Hamikdash. Ukeshagavra malchus Beis Chashmonai v'nitzchum bodku v'leimatzu ala pach echad shel shemen shayamunach b'chaysamer shel kohen gadol. And when the kingdom of the Chashmonaim prevailed and they triumphed over the Greeks, they searched and they found only one jug of oil with the seal of the high priest, which only had enough oil to burn for one day. A miracle occurred and they kindled 8 days. From this jug of oil, which only had oil for one day, they kindled the Menorah for 8 days. L'shana acheres, the next year, Kavum, they established the holiday. V'asom yamim tovim b'halal v'haidah. And they turned it into a Yom Tif for praise and for thanksgiving. This is a little piece of Gemara that requires tremendous reflection. The Gemara says clearly, why do we celebrate Hanukkah? Because when the Greeks came into the chamber of the temple, they contaminated all of the oils. And after the Chashmonaim prevailed and were victorious, they could only find one jug of oil. And the jug contains enough oil for one day, and a miracle occurs and it burns for 8 days. Clearly, the miracle and festival of Hanukkah is not celebrating the victory of the war. It's celebrating the miracle with the little cruse of oil. Clearly, the Gemara states, when they prevailed and they won, they could only find one jug of oil. The emphasis then is not that they prevailed and were triumphant in the victory. The emphasis is that they prevailed and they're triumphant in the victory, which in its aftermath created the miracle with the jug of oil. This seems very strange and enigmatic, especially from a historical perspective. Because it is clear that the military victory here was not just a military victory alone in a particular region. It is one that saved Judaism and the Jewish people. At that time, the Greek-Syrian Empire, which attempted to dominate the land and the people, were ambitiously attempting to Hellenize the entire Jewish world. A statue of Zeus, the main Greek god, was erected in the Holy Temple. The priests were forced to slaughter pigs instead of the regular kosher animals in the temple. Jews around the land were forced to erect altars and slaughter pigs to the Greek gods, and those who did not were tortured to death. Women who were caught circumcising their Jewish children on the 8th day were taken and their infants tied around their necks. They were tortured to death together with their children. Jews who were caught learning Torah or observing Shabbos or observing the Bris or observing Rosh Chodesh were tortured brutally and sadistically in the most savage of ways. Torah and mitzvahs were completely endangered. Jewish girls and women were regularly being raped and violated by the Greek Syrian rulers. Antiochus, who was the ruler at the time, was determined to use every possible method to sadistically crush and cut down any semblance of Jewish life and observance, and desecrated every mitzvah and the Beis Hamikdash, the Jewish center of spirituality and holiness. Thousands and thousands of Jews were tortured to death. The rabbis and the sages who taught Torah were tortured to death. Clearly, if the Chashmonaim would have not rebelled, if they would have not staged their guerrilla war against the Greeks, Judaism and the Jewish people would have died. They would have assimilated into the large Hellenistic culture as so many other small cultures, which was swallowed up by the great Greek Empire created a few generations earlier by Alexander the Great, by Alexander from Macedonia, the son of King Philip, who then rose to power and dominated most of the world until his early death, Alexander at the age of 32. If so, how would you define the great miracle of Hanukkah? No question, the victory of the Hashmonaim, which allowed the Jewish people to re-emerge again as a nation committed to their culture, their history, their heritage, and their Torah. And yet the Talmud says, what we're celebrating is the jug of oil. Let me give it the following illustration just to clarify the question. In 1967, 7 Arab armies vowed to destroy the little land of Israel. The Jewish people feared the worst. There were Arab leaders who vowed that there will be another Auschwitz. So 1967, barely 20 years after Auschwitz, there would be another Auschwitz. 3 million Jews in Israel would be exterminated, heaven forbid. As one said, we'll throw them all into the sea. The fear, the trepidation that gripped the Jewish world is indescribable. They prepared for the first week 10,000 body bags. The chief Rabbi Goren consecrated new fields and farms for cemeteries, fearing the worst. Prime Minister Eshkol, Levi Eshkol, in his speech to the nation to try to calm down a worried people, himself broke down in the middle of his speech. Heaven forbid if the enemy would have been victorious in the war and would have fulfilled its pledge and promise, and we have no reason to doubt it. We can only think the unthinkable, what would have happened once again 20 years after the Holocaust. And imagine there was no other large settlement of Jews in America and other places. This would be the end of our people. Thank God in 6 days Israel won. The land was quadrupled. The first 6 hours, Israel destroyed the Egyptian Air Force. Now I want to ask you a question. Let's say, to commemorate the victory, somebody went into a large shul in Eretz Yisrael, in Jerusalem, and lit the menorah in the synagogue, and it burned for 6 days. Certainly a very mushy and warm and inspiring addition to the story. But forgive me, with all of its miraculous properties, this is not the story. The story is not that the menorah burnt in a synagogue. The story is that the Jews triumphed, they were victorious, their lives were saved, their identity was saved, their future was saved. And yet when it comes to Hanukkah, the Talmud says, what are we celebrating? We're celebrating not the victory and the triumph of war that the Hashmonaim triumphed over the Greek-Syrian army. We're celebrating the fact that the menorah burned for 8 days. So I ask you a question. Say the menorah would have not burned for 8 days. Say the oil there could only last for 1 day, and they used it for 1 day, and there was no menorah lighting for 7 days. What would have happened? So they didn't light the menorah for 7 days. Then they brought new oil from Tekoa, and they began to light the menorah again. What would have been the consequence of the fact that there was insufficient oil? It doesn't seem that it would make quite a difference. And yet, the Talmud emphasizes, this is the reason we're celebrating Hanukkah. The answer to this, briefly, is emphasized in a single word. L'shana acheres kavum. The following year they established Hanukkah as a holiday. Why the following year? Why not that year? When they observed the victory and they observed the Hanukkah miracle, why didn't they establish it right there and then as a holiday? Saying from now on, each year, these 8 days will be celebrated as Hanukkah. The Gemara does not say they established it then to begin next year. L'shana acheres kavum. They established it the following year. The Kedushas Levi, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Barditchever, gives us a beautiful insight. He says that holidays in Jewish life don't only represent nostalgia. We commemorate an event that occurred 100 or 1,000 or 3,000 years ago. Jewish holidays represent something much deeper. That day, which we celebrate a holiday, the same energy that existed in the world the first time re-emerges in the world again. In other words, when the Jews left Egypt, there was a certain energy in the cosmos. Each day on the 15th day of Nisan, when we celebrate Pesach, Passover, that energy is available to us. We can access a deeper dimension within our own psyches, and we can access a certain dimension in the universe. With the energy that existed then re-emerges each year on that holiday. So it's not just commemorating the past, it's living the present. The Baditcheva says, if the holiday is articulated in Chumash, so we trust God that on the 15th day of Nisan you have this energy. It came Hanukkah. The rabbis, Chazal, the sages were unaware. Was this a momentary miracle? Was it a one-time miracle that happened that year to save Judaism and the Jewish people? And thus can it be established as an eternal holiday. L'shana Acheres, the next year, they felt the same energy. The same energy was available again in the world. That's when they made it a Yom Tov. They made it a holiday. But let's understand this in a more global and historical fashion. The Chazal, the rabbis, the sages who instituted Hanukkah, they had their eyes fixed on eternity. You see, it's very easy to get drunk. It's very easy to get intoxicated at certain pivotal moments in history. All too often in our history, we have become drunk over a new system, over a new civilization, over a new culture, over a new trend. We felt this new phenomenon, this new milieu and development will finally bring redemption and peace to our world. Whether it was with the emergence of socialism and communism, how many Jews became drunk and intoxicated over this new phenomenon which will finally unite the world in the dream of Karl Marx? Or so many other dreams and images that captivated the Jewish imagination. But as in all intoxication, you get high, you get excited. The world is beautiful. But the next day you wake up with a hangover and you look around, the inspiration has waned. All too often in history we became drunk over a phenomenon, but time passes and that energy is not here anymore. And we sober up to a reality often of destruction and rubble and debris left in the wake of that great pivotal moment of intoxication. Those great moments which promised so much, whether it's enlightenment or socialism and so on and so forth. But what did they leave in their wake? And then we have to reevaluate our priorities and our choices and question ourselves whether we have made the right historical choices. The Chazal watched the victory. They knew that this is a great and powerful moment, but they also knew that military victory alone does not necessitate and does not necessarily mean that this will remain timeless and eternal. The fact remains that 100 years later, the Hashmonai kingdom was defeated by Rome. Rome dominated the land of Israel. Rome ultimately destroyed the Second Temple in the year 70 after the Common Era and exiled the Jews. There was no memory of the temple, no memory of the Menorah in the temple. The rabbis understood very well that as thankful and grateful as we must be for the military victory of the Hashmonaim over the Greek-Syrian Empire, this does not constitute the ultimate reason for creating a timeless holiday, because what happens if, God forbid, this kingdom and empire might be defeated one day? And it was defeated one day, and that would have been the end of Hanukkah. So the rabbi said the miracle of Hanukkah is something else. It's the pach echot shel shemen shayachasum b'chaysamei shel kohen gadol. It's that little jug of oil, sealed with the seal of the kohen gadol, representing the spiritual light that Judaism represented. Representing Neir Mitzvah v'Torah, the light of the candelabra that burnt every day in the Beis Hamikdash, casting the light of Jewish morality, ethics, spirituality, the light of godliness, holiness, goodness, and kindness. When they saw that this jug of oil burned for 8 days, they understood this miracle will never die. So even when the Romans defeated the Hashmonayim and the Beis Hamikdash, the temple was destroyed, and Jews were and are dispersed around the world, and even in the darkest moments of exile, even when Jews found themselves at the edge of the abyss, it came Hanukkah, and they lit the menorah knowing that the little jug of oil, representing not military might, but representing spiritual righteousness, representing the Jewish commitment to build a world of righteousness and kindness that is worthy of the divine presence. This miracle, this flame will not be extinguished. Sure, we're thankful and we're grateful for the victory of the Hashmonayim, and this was the prerequisite for the Hanukkah miracle. Because if there would be no physical victory, there would be no spiritual victory. But they understood that what must be celebrated is the physical victory as a prerequisite, as an introduction, as a foundation. What are you going to do with the physical victory? Will it just mean that you're military powerful? Another military power can come and defeat you. But if your military victory allows you to rekindle the flame of hope, and rekindle the flame of compassion, and rekindle the flame of spirituality and goodness and kindness, and rekindle the flame that is there for those who are powerless, that nobody will be able to extinguish, that nobody will be able to destroy. And here, we then have the argument of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says we focus on the potential, and Beis Hillel says we focus on the actual. Beis Shammai says tonight is one night. In potentiality, we have 8 nights. Beis Hillel says tonight we have only one night. Meaning, there are 2 ways how to examine, how to look at the miracle of the oil. After the miracle was over, L'shana acheres, the next year, they looked back and they studied what happened. They observed what happened, and they realized that little jug of oil, which could only burn for 1 day, had in its power and potential to burn for 8 days. That jug of oil lasted for 8 days. So in potentiality, the first night, the oil contained the power to burn for 8 days. The second night, it contained the potential to burn for 7 days. The third night for 6, and the 8th night only for 1 night. That is, if you're examining retrospectively the miracle from next year, the following year, looking back, seeing what you know now, in hindsight, you understand that the first night of Hanukkah, that little jug of oil had in it the material for 8 nights. But when it was happening, what did you see? When it was happening, the first night they looked, hey, 1 night the menorah burnt. The second night they looked, wow, we have now a double, 2 nights. The third night, we have now a triple miracle. The menorah has been burning for 3 nights. In other words, the way the miracle played itself out in actuality, each night you saw the miracle of that night accumulating to the miracle of the previous night. On the 7th night, we have 7 miracles. On the 8th night, we have 8 miracles. Each night, this jug of oil burnt. So if you're looking at the potential of the jug of oil, the potential, the first night was 8. The second night was 7. If you're looking at the actuality, how it played itself out, you saw the miracle. On the 8th night, you saw 8 miracles. 8 nights of miracles. On the first night, you only saw 1. On the second night, you saw 2. Beis Shammai then judges the miracle in potentiality. What the oil had in its capacity. Beis Hillel judges it based on how it plays itself out visually. Therefore, Beis Shammai says the first night, tune into the potential. Tonight, the oil had the power of 8 nights. So now you're light 8, tomorrow 7. Beis Hillel goes according to actuality. In halachic terminology, we call it bekoyach and bepoil. Potentiality versus actuality. In Jewish history and in Jewish individual life, the difference is this. The school of Shammai views the person and society based on its potential. The school of Hillel views the person based on actuality. Beis Shammai looks at life and he says, when I see a person, this person has this and this amount of potential. I see a person in his or her pristine state. What are you capable of? What do you represent inside? What type of resources do you have inside? That's what I focus on. Your actual life is simply playing out your inner potential. My focus is not what you can do. My focus is not what you do. My focus is what you can do, what you're capable of doing. What is it in your power to do? Your actual life is only playing out the script. But the script is really your potential, what you're capable of doing. So every person you look at yourself. I have certain potentials in my life. You have certain potentials in your life. How much of that potential is being expressed? How much of that potential is being played out? What do you think the answer to the question is? How much of your potential is coming out in your life and how much of your potential remains dormant? Beis Shammai always judges a person based on potential. It's a very strict way of judging a person. It's a very tough way of scrutinizing a person. The actual life for me is significant only as much as it expresses what you're capable of, what your potential is. Sometimes you look at a person, he or she achieves great things, but then you look deeper and you say, but what was their potential? What could have you accomplished? What could have you achieved? So Beis Shammai always celebrates and evaluates things according to their pristine potential in a very idealistic fashion. Beis Hillel focuses on actuality. Beis Hillel celebrates and focuses on the actual day-to-day life and activities of the person. Beis Hillel believes that if we judge every person based on potential, a human being can forever get stuck in a feeling of inadequacy, leading to demoralization and paralysis, and even a form of melancholy, dejection and depression. Beis Hillel says a person has to focus very much on their behavioral life. Today is a day with tremendous opportunity. Live. Give it all you got. Live life to the fullest today. Actualize your potential to the best of your ability. But how I judge a person is based on what he or she is accomplishing, not based on what he or she is capable of accomplishing. Of course, these are two perspectives in life. One is more behavioral, one is more psychoanalytical, one is more stringent, one is more lenient. One is always challenging the person more and more, and one is affirming the person and motivating and encouraging the person. And in Judaism, we want a synchronization, ultimately, of both perspectives. Beis Shammai potential, Beis Hillel actuality. This then expresses itself in the second argument as well, albeit in a different way. Beis Shammai holds Hanukkah represents the kindling of the human flame, similar to Porei HaChag, to the bulls of Sukkot. Beis Hillel says, Mailin b'kodesh ve'ein meridin. The Medrash says that they used to offer the 70 bulls corresponding to the 70 nations of the world, articulated in the Torah. Each day, they went down and down, which represented in the clash of civilizations between pagan civilization and monotheistic civilization, Each day of Sukkot, the Jewish people attempted to transform the culture of the world to make it more moral and ethical, and therefore each day they required less work. In the beginning they were dealing with 13, now 12, now 11, now 10, until they can go to 1. In other words, in the beginning there is stronger combat. Later, you have already transformed the negative into positive, you can go down. Beis Shammai says in a person's life as well, we have two forces. We have the force of negativity, the force of guilt, of shame, of insecurity, the forces that paralyze us, which we must combat in order to kindle our own flame. The first night, therefore, you have to light 8 candles, like the bulls of Sukkot, because you're combating much darkness. When you finish that, now you can go down and down. The last night of Hanukkah, you have kindled the flame so many times, now 1 candle is enough. Beis Hillel says you cannot wait till you finish combating and uprooting all of the negativity within you, until you're clear that your full potential can be realized. Your job in life is to increase light. Your job in life is to live a productive, good life. Tonight, light 1 candle. It won't be so powerful because there's still negativity in you. But tomorrow, the light will dispel the darkness. You'll have 2. The next day, you'll have 3 because the light will dispel the darkness. Beis Shammai says, no. Go into your inner resources. Go into your potential. You must live according to your potential, and therefore you must uproot all the negativity within you, so that you can really live out your ideals. You can really live out your purity. Get rid of your obstacles, parei achag, and then each day it will become easier and easier. Beis Hillel says if we wait for this, some people will never get anywhere. The focus in life is, of course, you have to cleanse yourself, and of course you have to get rid of the inner forces that are paralyzing you. But the focus in life must be increase light. Live a life of goodness. Live a life of productivity. Live a life that's saturated with light and warmth and goodness. And slowly, it will get rid of the darkness, the skeletons, the demons in the closet, the skeletons within you, the darkness and the monsters that are lurking in you. Slowly, it will get rid of them. And therefore, each night there'll be more light and more light until you hit the 8th night, you'll have 8 lights. Because now the light has already dispelled the darkness. So if Hanukkah is the celebration, not just of military victory, but of the little jug of oil, of the human spirit of hope, of the Jewish consciousness that this world is a world which we must construct so that it reflects the divine image, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel represent 2 paths in this individual and collective work of healing the world. Whether we always view it according to the potential, that's the standard, and therefore we always have to work internally to root out the weeds so that the inner light can emerge. So in the beginning it's harder, and the more you progress, the easier it becomes. The less light you need, because the less darkness there is, and your focus is combating the darkness. Or Beis Hillel's focus is focusing on the positive development, on behavioral goodness, and that in itself dispels the darkness. That's the meaning, L'shana Acheres, the next year they established the holiday. The sages always looked at the future. They understood that the miracle of Hanukkah is not just the miracle of victory. They looked at the next year. Not just the next year, what the future will bring, and they understood that the miracle of the jug of oil, of kindling the flame of hope, that could never be extinguished. The Moirei Nayim, Reb Nachum Chernobyl writes that when the Gemara says, Psiloi sushmanim shein madlikin behen b'Shabbos, madlikin behen b'Chanukah, the halacha is that even wicks and oil that you can't use for Shabbos candles, you could use for Hanukkah candles. So he explains the meaning is, Shabbos we kindle a flame, Friday we kindle a flame which represents the flame of the soul. But sometimes there are wicks and oil that you can't use for Shabbos. There are certain types of bodies, there are certain types of people that will not get inspired even on Shabbos. But even those wicks you can use for Hanukkah. Even those oils you can use for Hanukkah, because the light of Hanukkah penetrates even wicks and oils which will not get penetrated on Shabbos. We see even people who have a difficulty with celebrating Shabbos and appreciating Shabbos, they celebrate Hanukkah. Because Hanukkah is a light that touches the essence of the human spirit. It touches the essence of the human soul. So even those wicks and oils, which don't get turned on by Shabbos, but they get turned on by Hanukkah, they feel the light of Hanukkah. They kindle the flame in their own heart, and they kindle the flame in the whole world to bring the world to a state where light vanishes and light triumphs over darkness. Have a happy and bright Hanukkah.
Shemoi Nasimei Chanukah Haneris Halolu. Bechol Shemoi Nasimei Chanukah Haneris Halolu. Bechol Shemoi Nasimei Chanukah Haneris Halolu. Kodesh Hey, Kodesh Hey, Kodesh Hey, Kodesh Hey, Kodesh Hey. V'yein Elohnu Reshu. Ishtamesh bohein, ishtamesh bohein, ishtamesh bohein. Bechol Shmei Nasimei Chanukah Haneris Halolu Kodesh Hey. Bechol Shmei Nasimei Chanukah Haneris Halolu Kodesh Hey. V'yein lanu rishus leishtamesh bohein. Hello, Leroy Son. Lehoy to the Halle, Shimcho HaGo